Hi there, it's Ed. Very glad to see you once again. In my last video, the Gen Con loot video, I did mention I had picked up the new starter set with the new adventure Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, and I did promise an unboxing, so I will show you what's inside of this and give you a little bit of a review and my impression of it. Now, about a year ago, I did another unboxing of this, which I got at last Gen Con, the Essentials Kit, and at the time I said I really liked this, and I said it was really good for people who were just getting into Dungeons & Dragons, and I mentioned I might be using some of this for some of the kids I teach D&D classes to. And I have used some of this, although not as much as I thought I might. I can talk about that more if you want to hear about it. Anyway, let's open up the new starter set, and we shall see what there is inside. And here we are, the D&D Starter Set, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. Let's see what we find inside this lovely box. Okay. First thing we find are dice. Polyhedral dice. If you're a brand new beginner to Dungeons & Dragons, you probably don't have any. We have the regular set of polyhedrals. We only have one 6-sided dice. I think that's because we don't generate characters with this starter set. They come pre-generated. We do have the advantage and disadvantage mechanic, however, but we only get one 20-sided dice. In the Essentials box set I did a review of, you got 2 of those. You can just roll the same dice twice. Not a big deal, but it's kind of fun to roll more dice. Anyway, so yes, here children, here everybody, your first set of dice. Not only is it a first set of dice, it's the beginning of an addiction. All right, check it out. What we have next, we have the adventure, Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. And this is actually pretty hefty. This is a pretty good sized module. I think it's about 40 pages. And this is very much a module for beginning dungeon masters and beginning players. By the way, I want to point out it does have Eric the Cavalier. Oh, I forgot to mention something that made me happy on the front of this. We do have Hank the Ranger and Diana? I forget her name. Anyway, the acrobat from the old Dungeons & Dragons cartoon. Gamers of a certain age will find a lot of familiarity and comfort in seeing those. But yeah, we did have, let me move those out of there. We have Eric the Cavalier here from the old D&D cartoon. Made me happy to see him. But this is a very simple, kind of a straightforward module. Tells you some adventure background there. And the outline, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3, and Chapter 4, different areas. Now, this is a bit open-ended. You can visit almost any of these areas in any order you wish. But the Clifftop Observatory, Chapter 4, you do kind of need to be 3rd level when you get there, because that is kind of the final boss battle. This adventure does a pretty good job of laying everything out, telling you a little bit about how to go about running this adventure. By the way, there's going to be minor spoilers in this, just so you know. Very minor. But it does tell you what it's like to be a DM, embrace the shared story, it's not a competition, and various things like that. It tells you about your hit points, your treasure, also making mistakes. If you do, it's okay. Keep going. So I appreciated seeing that. It gives you a map of Stormwreck Isle and the various adventure locations you can find in the area. And it goes on and talks a little bit about the Dragon's Rest area where you guys will start, your adventurers will start. And you do have a pretty quick combat against some zombies. Initially, when I read about the combat with the zombies, I thought, well, the whole undead fortitude could make them a little annoying, try to defeat them. But it's a good learning opportunity for new players to learn different types of attacks, and different damage types can have different effects on different creatures. So, you know, in that way, pretty good idea. And it does have a bit of a Deus Ex Machina if your brand new characters do get walloped pretty soundly. So we have a little idea of the different places you can find in Dragon's Rest is where you'll be. Something I did like, we do have pre-generated characters in this box set, which I'll show in just a minute, but we do have some individual quest ideas and individual character motivations for each of the pre-generated characters. So we have one for the cleric, the fighter, the paladin, the rogue, and the wizard. Things that the character and the player actually can think of, and things they can work towards as they're adventuring on Stormwreck Isle. And the patron, Runara, I think that's how you pronounce her name, she can sort of guide them as they go. So give you an idea of how to role-play your character if you are brand new to the whole Dungeons & Dragons and role-playing thing. We do have some different places where we can have encounters. We have an owlbear. Owlbears, back when I was young, was just kind of a random, bizarre two creatures, I should say, crammed together kind of monster. And now everybody loves owlbears, so that's fine. I do appreciate that they sort of show if you're a second or third level character, when you encounter these creatures or this specific encounter, how you should change it if you're the dungeon master. So I think that's really helpful for a person who's brand new to dungeon mastering. There we have Hank in the acrobat again. What happens in the Seagrow Caves. So we have a little bit of that. What's going on? The map. All the things there. Again, tells you if you're a second level character exactly how the DM would change the adventure. The Cursed Shipwreck. What can you find there? As you go through this area. And then we go to the Clifftop Observatory. Again, this is kind of the ending of this adventure. We do have an appearance of Presto finally from the D&D cartoon. But it does talk about if you're going to do this, how to change it. But primarily, this is the end. This is the ultimate final encounter. And you kind of need to be third level when you get here. But they have all of that and wrap everything up. Have a list or a page of the magic items you'll find, potentially, and all the creatures. Now, one of the things that Professor Dungeon Master said in his video, and I will link that in the description down that way, that it would have been nice had they put the creature stats where you encounter them, and I think that's probably a good idea. I understand having them all together in the back is a design choice, but having them right in the text when you might need them, or at least a little small text block blurb, the most important information you need at the moment, and then maybe a page number where you could find the full stat block might be helpful. But there we go. That is the adventure Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. Laid out pretty well, and with the exception of moving the monster stat blocks around, I think it is set up pretty well. If you are a brand new dungeon master, this would guide you through how to run this adventure, so that's pretty good. Then we have a little flyer. Continue your journey. If you enjoyed the starter set, you might want to go to the essentials box. So you can make characters from levels 1 to 6 and actually create characters, not use pre-generated characters. Or you could use all the full D&D 5e rule books. Here we have a flyer for the different expansions games and all the socials, as the kids say these days. All right, and we have another flyer. Welcome, adventurer. You can go to dnd.wizards.com/starter to get more information. So you have learn to play videos, how to complete your character sheet, rules explanations, tips for players and dungeon masters, resources to find or run a game, both in person and remotely, and what comes next. And a little QR code where you can get some more information. So handy, leads you on down the journey of Dungeons and Dragons. And here we have the actual rule book. And as I say, this rulebook will not show you how to create a Dungeons & Dragons character. The characters included here are pre-generated. So there's no blank character sheets. There's no real character creation rules in this book. But it does a pretty good job of explaining to a brand new Dungeon Master and to brand new players how to play the game. And it tells you basically how the D&D game is going to go. The DM describes the environment. The players decide what their characters do, and the DM narrates the results of the action. That's pretty much how Dungeons & Dragons goes. And it talks about right here, the D20 roll. A lot of times when I am teaching brand new people or kids or adults, all the rules of Dungeons & Dragons, I say, yeah, there's plenty of books with all kinds of rules, but the basic way to play Dungeons & Dragons is tell me what you want to do, roll a 20-sided dice, and roll high. Everything else is just specifics beyond that. Tells you what your proficiencies mean, your advantage and disadvantage, what does it mean when you roll that, how to use the ability checks and ability scores, your various skills, and they have them broken down by ability score, which I think is very smart. I'll talk about that a little bit more when I go to the character sheets. Talks about alignment, your saving throws, the environment, how you travel, what you can see, what your passive perception is, and gets into combat with initiative and surprise rolls. And what do you need to roll to hit? Actions in combat. What can you do? How do you make an attack? Range attack and melee attack. All that kind of stuff. get to mounted combat. I'm not sure how much mounted combat's going to happen in that adventure, but I actually haven't read the entire thing, so it may happen more often than I think. What you do for a short and a long rest. Equipment, with more D&D cartoon characters there. So basic equipment and armor and weapons. Some basic adventuring gear. Spells. Presto. Doing some stuff there. So give you an idea basically of how spells work. What the information means. And then some basic spells which you will be using for a 1st to 3rd level character. And on the back, conditions, which I think is very important. If you are a brand new Dungeon Master, having this as a reference guide about the different conditions with Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is going to be very, very helpful for you and for the players. A lot of those can come into play. And then we have the pre-generated characters. Now, I like some of the stuff they did on these, and some of the stuff, it's not my fave, to be honest. So we do have pre-generated characters. This is a High Elf Wizard, which is cool. We have all of our abilities statted there. We have our skills. One of the things that I've seen in some character sheets that I really like is they will group the skills next to their relevant abilities. So athletics would be next to strength. Next to dexterity, you'd have stealth and acrobatics and all those sorts of things. Arcana would be next to intelligence. I get the idea of putting them in alphabetical order. That makes sense. But I also think it's very handy for new players if you group the skills next to the relevant ability. That gets them used to, well, strength is athletics, or I'm doing a perception roll, that's going to be wisdom. They do have the abbreviation down here at the end of the skill, so that's handy to show you what it is. But I think the visual layout of having those right next to the ability is handy, especially for a brand new character. I have our armor class, we have our hit points. Right here we have all of our equipment. Everything you have is right there. And something they did that I thought was a really good idea is they have your proficiencies. They tell you exactly what the proficiency means. So saving throws, anything with a dot, you're proficient in that. With skills, with a dot, you're proficient in that. And it tells you, this is the wizard, so it tells you what equipment, as far as weapons and things like that, your character is proficient with. It goes into languages, attacks, very specifically. You have a short sword. Interesting that the wizard has a short sword. I'm an old school guy. I think that's weird. Anyway, roll a d20 plus 4 to see if you hit. If you do, the target takes 1d6 plus 2 piercing damage. Very clearly spelled out. If you are brand new, that'll tell you everything you need to know right there. Not a chart that you're going to have to fumble through and not understand exactly what it means. Tells you your different spells in the spell book. Have a spot where you can write down the ones you've prepared, your different spell slots, cantrips. Tells you what your spell attack bonus would be and the spell save DC. Here on the back, it goes into information or more detail. What does it mean to be a high elf? What does that give you? Your sage background. So what does that give you? Making the character yours. So choosing a name or writing it down. Deciding what you look like. And your personality. Also talks about how to gain levels. This starting set does go from 1st to 3rd, so hopefully your character will continue to gain levels. This is something that I really liked, if you can see that. It shows you how many prepared spells you can have as a 1st level wizard, but then also when you go up to 2nd and 3rd. So a little chart right there. Don't have to look in the book for that. Don't have to ask the dungeon master or somebody else. You've got it all right there. Extremely helpful for a brand new player. Also has the different abilities and features you'll get when you go up levels, and a list of further spells is what I'm trying to say unsuccessfully there. So that is the wizard. We also have a rogue, a Lightfoot halfling rogue. Oh, come out of there. All right, let me just go pull all those out. So same thing, same kind of layout, all the information you need about being a halfling, being a rogue, the different features you'll get as you go up in level. We have a human paladin. All that info right there. Very nice. Pretty nice picture there. We have a wood elf fighter. Let me move that around so you can see that a little better. All right. Excellent. Very nice. And a hill dwarf cleric. Again, all the information you'll need in addition to the different spell slots you'll get as you go up in levels and the expended spell list for that. Yeah. And then we have, now this is something that I don't really like, to be honest. We have this white piece of cardboard. When I first opened this up, I thought, oh, okay, cool. What's beyond that? Is there something cool down there? Is there something for me? No. It's just a spacer. It's just something to add space or take up space in your box. What is the point of this? I don't know. I don't know if it was extra storage space. When you get your dice out of the bag, you can put it in there. They won't rattle around. I think that's highly unlikely. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm not sure why there's such a spacer in here to make the box that thick. If you don't have that much content, why make a box this thick? It's about the same size as the Essentials box set, but there's a whole lot more stuff in the Essentials box, like the GM screen and condition cards and magic item cards and NPC cards and a small little, what am I trying to say, Dungeon Master screen, things like that. So if they only had this amount of content, why didn't they put it in this size box from the old basic set, you know? Because you get about this much stuff in this size box. Anyway, that's one of my quibbles about it. I just didn't understand why they did that. Overall, if you are brand new to Dungeons & Dragons, and if you're going to be a first-time Dungeon Master, or if you are a first-time player and have no experience in Dungeons & Dragons, and if you're not sure this is something you want to really get involved with, then yeah, I think the starter set might be a good one. It's $20, so very small investment to get started, and if it's something you're interested in, you can go on to the Essentials kit with actual character creation and a bit more rules to create your adventures, things like that. If you're dealing with a lot of younger kids and you don't want to go through the entire process of creating a character, then yeah, the starter set might be a good idea. Like I say, I do like the pre-generated characters. I like the way they had everything spelled out on the character sheet that you needed. However, I would say anybody that has any familiarity with any Dungeons & Dragons, if you've played older editions, or if you've played with other people and you know that you're interested, then I would say forego the starter set and pick up the Essentials kit, just because of the expanded rules, the ability to create your own characters. Even though it only goes up 6th level, you could play the game for years only using this box set if you wanted to. I don't think that's true with this. But anyway, that's my idea. That's what I think. Please feel free to give me your opinion down in the commenty thing down below. Also, I just want to show this again. Why not start with this box set, kids? Harder to find, but still. Found out recently, Errol Otis, I think, was 15 when he did this piece of art. Anyway, enough of my reminiscence and heading down memory lane. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I will see you again very soon.